I knew nothing about mandatory sentencing laws before my brother was arrested for growing marijuana. My first thought was, that is so stupid of you. And my second thought was, well, it's only marijuana. Jeff was looking at 5 years in federal prison. I couldn't believe it.
The judge said at sentencing, this is not what I would do. He was clear about it, that it was, not the right sentence, but he had no choice.
We saw this powerful law completely misused. Overwhelmingly, you're seeing this law is being applied to the wrong people.
We ended up with about 25 people here in DC at a meeting. Some came from as far as Florida, one from New Hampshire. Then I started hearing people saying, my son's in prison for 17 years, my husband's in prison for 10 years, my wife is in prison for 5 years. And as you went around the room, your heart just started sinking about how much pain there was in that room with so many people serving so much time and the families just struggling to deal with it. There was this consensus that we all needed to do something, and so we started Families Against Mandatory Minimums.
I'm Ron White. I was Chief Counsel to Senator Edward Kennedy on the Judiciary Committee. FAMM was started in the early 1990s. We met Julie then. She brought families to Washington to talk about the effect of these laws, and so it turned for me from an academic interest and concern to a human problem that we needed to address.
Julie came to see us, and that's when we first became aware of the terrible injustices of mandatory minimums.
President Clinton has done something he rarely does. He has freed federal prisoners serving time for drug convictions.
I was actually convicted of conspiracy. My sentence was 19 and a half years.
At a time when I probably needed it most, she was perhaps one of the most calming factors that really assured me that, this was going to have a happy ending, that this was not just about her and her family and her taking care of her own. She saw it as a problem that needed to be addressed, and to be able to speak for all of the people in this country who did not have a voice.
I actually spent 8.5 years total incarcerated until I received the presidential pardon.
Those who favor reforming our federal minimum mandatory sentencing laws are not against punishment. They're just in favor of the right punishment. Our federal prison population has increased about 900% since 1980. And with that uptick, you've seen a lot more Americans who are aware of this problem, and a lot more Americans who are willing and eager to push for reform. This is simply an American issue. It's a human issue. It's a common sense issue.
Well, I heard about FAMM from the very beginning because we were in search of other people that were active on the issue. Families Against Mandatory Minimums were bringing the families to the forefront, sharing the stories, and essentially sharing how this was impacting people across racial lines. It was impacting people around the country. And so who would have thought the Tea Party and the Progressive Caucus would come together and say, maybe we need to look at the prison industrial complex. Maybe we need to look at mass incarceration.
I was one of the vice chairs of the U.S. Sentencing Commission from 1999 until 2010. FAMM, I think, in the first instance, always focuses on human beings, on individuals, family members, puts a human dimension on sentencing. That is critical. In the second instance, they have worked very effective coalitions with members of Congress, with other groups who support sentencing reform in a very effective way over their 25-year history. So they are a very effective organization. They are diligent. They don't give up. They're persistent. And that's what you need to accomplish sentencing reform.
FAMM has played an important role in this process and is just getting started in the sense that there's so much good that is now happening as a result of FAMM's efforts over the last 25 years.
When you talk to somebody who benefited from the reform you passed, It's the most rewarding thing in the world.
When people are in really tough circumstances, when the situation is dire, one of the things that can do more for them than anything else, and it costs nothing and it doesn't weigh anything, is to give them hope. FAMM did that, still does that.
77% of the public responded that they want to see mandatory minimums eliminated for nonviolent offenders. Across the country, there is a call for change.